This frontiersman gained his wife's gruesome revenge, who was killed in cold blood for over 25 years. Liver-eating Johnson was a bane in the Wild West. His revenge rampage for killing his wife was a nightmare, and it lasted for a quarter of a century. John Johnson was born in 1824 in thereabout region from the West Frontiers. It was assumed that he had changed his name. He was the son of Isaac and Elizabeth Garrison. Johnson's father was an alcoholic and violent. That led to the son to join the Navy in order to escape from his father's violence. However, this did not go well. Johnson was punished by having his shore leave revoked for a month because he defended his partner against their lieutenant. Not only that, the sailor attacked his lieutenant in his office after he had struck his fellow sailor with a sword. As soon as he ended his punishment, Johnson escaped and he changed his name to avoid the military court because he became absent from military duties without authorization, or AWOL. After his outflow, Johnson joined the gold rush in California and Montana in order to become a frontiersman and be a legend in this domain. The 6-foot-tall, 250-pound man became the symbol of mountain man. He built for him a wooden shake. He was a trapper, hunter, woodcutter, and he always carried his tomahawk, knives, and guns. Johnson turned into a wild man that no one could come up against. By that time, America was working on extending its lands and took territories under its control. They were invading tribes of the natives and hunting lands and disrupting their trading routes. At the time of Johnson's life, the area was known as the Untamed West. Those natives were the first who discovered the area, yet they were always in danger of these white settlers' intrusion. The battle between the tribes and the soldiers were bloody, violent, and everywhere using the worst types of torture. Johnson's wife was killed in one of these incursions by Crow militants. Apparently, she was from the Flathead tribe, and he married her around 1847 after he had personally experienced the wrath of Native American warriors. Johnson was irritated for the killing of his wife, who was pregnant when she was killed. He couldn't find a reason for these terrible crimes, so he promised himself to have a murderous revenge. His agitation became legendary. Estimation said that he killed upward of 300 warriors for 25 years, and that obtained him the nickname of Fearsome. It is said that the angry avenger did not stop on killing crows, his enemies. Likewise, he cut out their livers and ate them raw and direct from the source. He inspired the idea from the Crow tribe's religious beliefs and views for the afterlife. He wanted to have a terrifying revenge, and cannibalism was the most suitable one for his aim, and reprise them with fear. Quite simply, for Crow warriors, the liver was an essential organ even after death. They believed that without it, they couldn't make a successful transition into the afterlife. And Johnson apparently found a way to use this belief to his advantage. The Revenger became a source of fear. Historian Andrew Mahane Sutherland quoted in The Mythical West by Richard W. Slatta, "As his collection of scalps grew, Johnson became an object of fear." However, the tale may not be a true story, and there was no revenge or liver eating at all. Wondering about the way the story began, Johnson had a theory that may answer the question, and how did he get his nickname? Actually, there were warriors, deaths, and livers, yet not as was mentioned in this story. The real story, according to the speaker, happened when he went with his companion on a hunting trip. They were ambushed by Sioux warriors in Montana. Then a battle flamed up between them and the combatants. Johnson's knife stuck in one of the bodies. As he pulled it out, incidentally, a piece of liver came out with it. The latter pretended to eat. According to the book Red Lodge, Saga of a Western Area, the frontierman said in his interview, "I was all over with blood, and I had the liver on my knife. The liver coming out was unintentional on my part. I didn't eat any of it." The pretense, then, was enough for his companions, and the name stuck. And that's how the nickname's legend was began. After knowing that the name was based on a lie, the whole revenge story cannot be true as well. Johnson was known as a man who loved telling stories about himself and his bravery, especially, that is, as it was believed, he was on friendly terms with the Crow in that period. Historian as well said that the story is a myth and it never happened, principally when they discovered that the period when his wife was supposedly murdered, Johnson was still in the Navy, uncertainty if he got married primarily. Even if the tales he told about his bravery, such as escaping the clutches of enemy warriors and survived by snacking on the severed leg of a man he'd killed, was a lie, outrun the America's western frontier harsh condition was an achievement. The frontierman experienced different types of jobs. He worked as gold digging to hunting, trapping, selling furs, hawking wood to steamships, and selling homemade whiskey. Truly, Johnson was the very essence of the frontier. In 1864, the previous sailor joined the Army. Once again, he lied. He gave them his wrong age. Instead of saying 39 years, he pretended that he was 33 years. Yet his career in the Army did not last long. It was only for a few days before he deserted because he used to spend his pay packet drunk, also due to the lack of funds. Once again, he was re-enrolled in the military, and he was shot twice during the Civil War, yet he survived. By 1865, Johnson went back to the frontier after he had left the Army. His legend continued to grow. It seems that nothing could stop him and his stories, such as ranging from the poisoning of his enemies to utilizing purpose-built tunnels to attack from nowhere. Only his age was the obstacle. When he reached his 60s in 1880, he took a job as a deputy in the Colson, Montana Sheriff's Office, then became part of civilization. The veteran later moved to Red Lodge, Montana, where he became the town marshal. The ex-sailor retired due to the weakness of his health, and he went to Los Angeles. Then he moved to a veterans facility where he passed away in January 1900, a few weeks in the facility. However, his death was not the end of his legend. Hollywood kept his reputation alive with a fictional movie about Johnson's real life. The movie was released in 1972 by Warner Brothers, titled Jeremiah Johnson. The movie star was Robert Redford, who personated Johnson. Jeremiah Johnson movie aimed at giving the real story and picture of the man to the world and burned the terrifying legend. Hollywood was not the only defender of Johnson. Try Robinson, a 7th grade teacher, tried to interest his class in history of the frontier, and while he was narrating the story, he told them that the man was buried in cemetery that was beside a busy road, which made the students irritated. So students with their teacher tried to find a solution to this situation. They wanted to rebury the frontiersman in Montana, the place he loved more. Yet this was difficult. Red Lodge, where he was deputy sheriff for the last time, refused the students' request to bury him there. It seems they were still scared from his story and didn't want to have any relation with him. But students were not despaired. Students asked the government for a legal authorization to rebury the frontiersman remains in a closer area from the frontier. The students had done it. Government authorized them to legally disinter Johnson in the Wyoming town of Cody, home of Buffalo Bill, center of the West. Not only as such, Jeremiah Johnson's star, Robert Redford, and its director, Sidney Pollack, both promised to attend the ceremony. In June 1974, the veteran's remains was reburied with the attendance of Robert Redford, who had helped in holding the remains to his grave. Now, he is next of kin home. The legend did not end up on his rebury. In 2000, Cody's Firearms Museum received a weapon, which was a gun, a .56 caliber rifle made by Hawken, that supposedly once belonged to Johnson. Museum curator Ashley Helbinski stated on her blog, "We know that this is the rifle that Johnson carried during his time in the West. He was photographed with the firearm." Montana wanted to collect as much objects that one day belonged to the veteran as they can. In 2002, the wood shack that he built while living in Red Lodge was moved to the town's visitor center. The man was a real legend, whatever the truth was. He in himself created an ineffaceable imprint in his life that made people keep asking about him after a century